All right, so I just want to make a quick video for you guys. Just a few days ago, Sony Alpha Rumors released a rumor from a trusted source that there's two Sony sensors coming down the line that support 8K video recording. Let's jump into some of the specs real quick. Sensor number one is a 36 megapixel sensor. It does 10 frames per second at 16-bit, which is pretty awesome. I haven't seen that in any other camera. It also shoots 60 frames per second at 10-bit, which is impressive. It's got on-chip phase detect autofocus, which is great. I have a feeling this is more of a video-oriented 8K sensor. And the other sensor is 60 megapixels, which is awesome for landscape photography. It's got 16 channels, which is crazy. Normally it should be 8. Channels is just the amount of channels that read out off the sensor. It shoots 4.6 frames per second at 16-bit, 12 frames per second at 14-bit, and this is the full 60 megapixel readout. 8K 30p video at 12-bit, 8K 60p video at 10-bit, 4K 60p at 12-bit, and full HD 300p at 10-bit. Something that the sensors offer is weighted pixel binning. It says here that it improves the image quality when shooting video with pixel binning, already featured in a lot of Sony sensors. So that's like the A7R III or the A7R IV, where it takes a full frame 42 megapixel image and then scrunches that down to a 4K image so you can get the full field of view. It's got a new dual gain ADC mode. It improves dynamic range by almost 2 stops. The sensor loses 50% speed when using it. Details not known yet. This seems probable. I guess it says that the X-T3 sensor can already do that. I don't know if that's true or not. I don't think Fuji has really enabled that. That could be really neat for landscape photographers or in situations where you need high dynamic range, but you don't need fast frame rates. So I don't know, kind of excited to see what happens there. The last thing that they mentioned was digital overlap HDR. It's like bracketing, but you can shoot 2 frames almost at the same time. The minimal time interval is 1/6000th of a second. That seems cool. I don't know if that's something I would really use. I don't really know anything about it, so I'm not going to pass judgment on it yet. Let's move on. So obviously these are a rumor. These could not be true at all. Who knows? I think this is probably going to happen. Sony is the leader in developing sensors, R&D, all that stuff. Sony's doing the most progressive work, so it seems probable that Sony would be the first one to do this. So I don't see this being out of the realm of reason here. I've been seeing a lot of misinformed comments on this on the internet, and I kind of wanted to just take a moment and address some of those issues that people think these sensors will have. The biggest one I see is that people say, Sony can't even do 4K 60p right now, so how in the heck can they do 8K 60? So one thing I think people need to really consider is that just because that this is put on the spec sheet of the sensor doesn't actually mean that whatever camera that this sensor ends up in we'll actually be able to have enough horsepower to pull that off of the sensor, process it, put it to a card. So this is how I think that Sony can actually pull this off if they wanted to. One of the things that I think people need to really consider here is that you cannot reason about future technology based on the analogy of present technology. And what that means is you can't base your future predictions of how a sensor or a camera or anything will work, for that matter, based on what we already have. In order to break new barriers and create the imagery of the future, we're gonna need new methods and ways to do that. And that's my point here. So let's jump into exactly how I think this is possible. 2 big concerns that I really see were data write speeds to the card. How can we take an 8K 60p video and put it to a memory card? And the other one was too much data. Where the heck am I gonna store this? I think these are again rooted in current technologies issues. And if these sensors are a couple years down the line out from actually being put into a camera, a lot of these issues are going to be solved. And this is how. I'd like to welcome you to H265 compression. I don't know if you've read up on this, but you should take some time and read up on it. H265 compresses the data by putting more load on the CPU to compress and uncompress that data. It's a trade-off in file size and computing power. So if we have a faster processor, we can be compressing more and the file size will be smaller while still retaining the same quality. I think, especially by the time that these sensors are put into cameras, that this won't be an issue because there's already fast CPUs out there. They're becoming more widely available and they're making their way into everything, including phones. So it's pretty reasonable that we're going to see processing power within cameras jump pretty high here. I'm not really going to get into the details of how it compresses and uncompresses the data and how it stores it. You should really take some time and look into it. It really is fascinating. But here is what you need to know. H265 can provide us with up to 75% smaller file size with the same visual quality. That's impressive. Basically what this will enable us to do is you'll be able to record 10-bit 444 4K video on a 64 gigabyte card, and that'll last you all day. That's how good this compression really is. This compression is already implemented in the DJI Mavic. They have a 10-bit 4K H265 log format, and it looks really damn good. I think even if Sony doesn't use the H265 compression, we still have UHS-III cards coming down the line. These provide up to 625 megabytes a second write speed. That's impressive. That's twice the speed of the M2 cards in the Red cameras. So the future looks really bright. One of the other things I was reading is a lot of people think that these sensors are too advanced, and they say these are going to end up in cinema cameras. You know, maybe, but I doubt it, especially because they're putting out 16-bit stills. There's a 60 megapixel sensor, which really doesn't even make sense in a cinema camera. So I think that's not going to be true. These will probably end up in DSLRs or mirrorless cameras. One thing I did see come up that I am not sure how they're going to handle this is the heat involved with pushing 8K 60p video off of a sensor. I think they can do, the speed is no issue with their stacked sensor technology. I think they can push that much off of a sensor, but I think a good concern that a lot of people have is the heat. And this may be why the A7S III is taking so long, is that full frame sensors generate a lot of heat when you pull that much data off it so fast. I don't think sensors have hit the thermal limit as far as the laws of physics are concerned. So I don't think we've hit like a wall that we can't pass. I think the issue that we have to overcome is an engineering problem. Considering Sony hires a lot of the best engineers in the world, I think they will overcome this. All right, so that's it. That's what I wanted to get across. I want people to think logically about these problems and not get their feelings or ideals of past tech in the way of future technical innovation. I want to know what you think. Leave it in the comments below, and like, subscribe, comment, do all that stuff. Thanks for watching.